Hi everybody, well it's just after getting quiet now after a really busy morning here at Teen Talks. So this is a half-day conference. It's now in its sixth year at Cork County Council, and we had a range of teenagers from across schools in Cork County and also Cork City, both online and in person here today. So as you can see, everybody has just left now. So the way in which this morning was structured is that there were four different speakers talking about four different areas. We had a variety of conversations from eating disorders to mindset to being a professional rugby player to also travelling in the ocean on a solo basis. So when you put all of that together, it made for quite the emotional roller coaster. And each and every one of our speakers they brought something very, very different to the table. So we had Sheila Naughton, we had Niamh McDonnell, we had Billy Holland, and we also had Dr. Karen Weeks. Now, I had the delightful job of being the MC today, and I just wanted to share with you just 10 key points that came out of the conversation. Okay, so first of all, each and every single speaker spoke about the importance of reaching out and talking to people. And bearing in mind the audience of this conference was teenagers and their teachers were here with them, but the key thing that particularly everybody here wanted to talk about was who do you talk to? And maybe it's your parents, and maybe it's your siblings, and maybe it's your friends, or maybe it's various different charity partners or organisations, and many of them were here today. But that was something that they did talk about, is how, if it is something like an eating disorder, or if it is something like finding it really hard to deal with a certain situation, is that the power of reaching out to somebody and talking to them is important, very important, critical in fact. And it also made me think as well, is that if people reach out to us, do we know what to do? And sometimes we don't always know what to say. But I think that that's really important in today's world, is that we all get a sense of how to handle these conversations should they arrive at our door. The second thing that they talked about as well, and particularly Sheila talked about spotting the signs. So she said that somebody doesn't have to be in a really, really bad situation before they can get help or are worthy of getting help or need to reach out, etc. And again, it's something to take away, is that are we spotting the signs of maybe things that might be growing on us, and whether it can be anxiety, or it could be depression, or it could be not really liking your job, or an issue that's arising with somebody within your social circle, etc. Is spotting the signs. And that's something I would put out to all of you today, is that are there signs that you need to spot? The third thing is finding your passion, right? And particularly Billy talked about this. Billy talked about the fact that it's so important to find what really, really motivates you, and he spoke about sport and being outside, being part of a team, etc. And Karen, being the first ever woman to have rowed solo across an ocean, the Atlantic Ocean in fact, and the 20th woman in the world have done so. She spoke about the same thing, is that it's so important to find your motivation and then dig into it and go for it. And Billy also said that that's where self-discipline comes from. If you know what motivates you, then you find the goal that you actually want to achieve and are motivated to achieve. That's where self-discipline comes from. And then he talked about, accountability, and he talked about putting structures in place, and he talked about sport, and whether it is, let's say, the gym and nutrition and everything else. But he said it all starts with finding your passion. And now starting to brighten up in here now, because the curtains are opening here behind me, so that's how I'm changing colour. But again, it's something I think that it's worthwhile everybody taking time to think about. And perhaps you maybe haven't or lost sight of your passion, or maybe sometimes passions change and we think that they are the same as they were when we started in a job, or started in a business, or started on a certain project. And the reason I'm bringing this up as in the way I am in this video is that I'm very, very aware of how much teenagers and young people look to people older than them, and whether it is in careers, or whether it is in relationships, or whether it's in schools or wherever, they turn to us a lot. And sometimes we don't know that they're doing so. Sometimes we don't know that they're watching the words we say, the language we use, the sentiment that we're bringing to a conversation, or things we might say flippantly that they aren't maybe necessarily critical of. So that's why I'm putting all of this out there today, is that when I think about the fact that this has been a Teen Talks conference, we're talking to them all the time. In my own world, I work with tens of thousands of teenagers every year through Savvy Teens and a range of the initiatives that we work with young people. So my radar is very high towards this anyway, but just want to put it on yours. The next thing is, and Niamh gave a series of not just strategies but tools and resources that people can use, anybody can use to help their mental health. So she said, for example, writing down 3 to 5 things every day that you're grateful for, 3 to 5 things every day that you like about yourself. And I thought that was we don't always hear about that one. And I think if every teenager in the world did that, how much easier it would be, number one, to be a teenager, and of course to not let comparison be the theft of joy as well. She also spoke about setting your intention for the day and using a word to describe how you want to feel in the day. Now, something that came up in particular, I would say, with Sheila was wanting something to stop, and she was just talking about when she had body dysmorphia and other consequences of an eating disorder. She spoke about, wanting something to step in and to make it stop. And again, maybe that happens to people, not maybe, it does happen to people, but in different ways. Maybe it is a bullying situation in work, or maybe it is, again, running out of passion for something and wanting an intervention, wanting something to step in, or someone to step in. And she spoke about the power and the responsibility that comes with making your own decisions about that, is that you can be the person to make it stop. And again, that loops back to the first point about reaching out and talking to people, but often decisions lie in your hands. And okay, it may not be today that you need to take them or can take them, but it can start with that. It's back to a video that I recorded when I was in Australia a couple of weeks ago. I was talking about a statement that a teenager said to me, close enough to the time, that has kept me thinking, and I've said to a lot of people since, and that is one day or day one. You may not be able to make that decision today, but today could be day one on the path towards making it. Moving on then to the 7th point, and that is Karen spoke about, like, if you're 80 days sailing across an ocean, like I asked her, what do you think about? Like, what do you think about for that period of time? And one of the teenagers asked her the question, what was the scariest part of it? And she told us, but she also spoke about the things that you can do to take care of your mental health along the way in pretty extreme circumstances, and they're accessible to everyone, like breathing techniques, like exercise. Okay, you may not be able to exercise in a boat going across the ocean, but exercise is there, and there's always positive endorphins that come from it. And then, of course, authenticity is simply being you and simply feeling what you're feeling, and not having the exhaustion of trying to keep up a presence that you're not really feeling, etc. Is that authenticity is available to us all. Now, going on then to number 8 is, I did ask Billy, because I interviewed Billy, and all 3 of Sheila and Niamh and Karen presented, but in the case of Billy, I interviewed him, and I did ask him about the role of role models. And I did speak about that from the perspective of what role do they have in his life. And of course, he is one himself, but what role do role models have? And the reason I brought that up is that I find role models can be absolutely brilliant to learn from, to emulate certain elements of, etc. But there can be a thin line between a role model doing that and a role model making somebody feel, what have I been doing in my life? And I know I've mentioned this in videos before, but and it's not the role model's fault, it is the person who's looking at the role model. So I did ask him about that, and I do think that, again, going back to the point that teenagers do look to us. We are role models to teenagers, not maybe because we've done anything extraordinary, but because we've done ordinary things that feel extraordinary to them. And as a result of that, I think being authentic as a role model and talking about, and he spoke about struggles, and he spoke about what it's like to lose a match, and he spoke about what it's like when people criticise you who don't know you at all, and he spoke about all of that. And then he also spoke about the joy and the euphoria and the teamwork that comes with it as well. So I think that authenticity that comes with being a role model is key. Now, was everybody able for the conversations today? Probably not. And a couple of people did say that to me, in some cases it might have been too heavy, in some cases it might have been, some teenagers may not have been fully engaged in it, and my answer to this is teenagers are teenagers. They are who they are. And no, not all of them are going to be able for everything, or they're not always going to be interested in everything. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try and have these conversations. And that doesn't mean that in 5 or 10 years' time, something that could be said in a thoughtful, authentic, practical, solutions-driven way won't make a difference. The last thing I will say is that I interacted with them right throughout using Instagram stickers. The reason I did that is that because I wanted to give them a voice. It helped me manage, obviously, a big crowd as well. But it also then meant that I could share some of the things that the teenagers said with the audience and with the organisers as well. And then I could filter out anything that, isn't exactly designed for public consumption. So Instagram stickers where you ask questions via an Instagram sticker can be really helpful. Thanks so much indeed to Jenny and to Niall and to all of the team who gave me the opportunity to be here today.